Thanks everyone, thanks Pierce, and that tees it up lovely for me because looking at the farm and what it grew since 2017, you can see here the blue line, the tons of grass has gone up here, and this is the amount of fertiliser that was used in units per acre. So back, the blue line is the total farm, what the farm produced, and the red line is the Newford section which we're on here, and the Newford really section is the engine block of the farm. So it's interesting to compare the two. So on the total farm, you can see 2017, it grew almost 14 tonne. The Newford itself grew more, just over 14 tonne as well. Now there was a dip, you can see the dip here in the bars, and that's because of the drought in 2018. Newford also lost a very good farmer over, you can look over your shoulder, you see the Athenry school, that was a part of the farm here, was worked very hard, grew a lot of grass. We lost that in 2018, so there was a bit of a fall off in production of grass. But go back to 2021 and 22 and look at Newford here, it's back up to 14 tonnes of grass. And as Pierce said, that farm needs to, with the stocking rate that's on the farm, we have to grow that amount of grass. Now, put that in context, most dry stock farms will only be growing 7 to 8 tonnes. So it's growing double the amount of grass that a normal dry stock farm would grow, but that's because of its stocking rate mainly. But the interesting thing now, the green line is the amount of nitrogen that's used on the farm since 2017. And back in 2017, no more than a lot of farms, a lot of nitrogen was used. The farm needed to grow a lot of fertilizer, a lot of grass, a lot of fertilizer was used. But you can see the trend in the fertilizer has dipped from using over 150 units back down to using 120 units. So we're almost saving a bag of urea per acre. And that's through the incorporation of clover, using slurry more wisely, and using low emission slurry spreading as well. So a lovely story to say that's growing a lot of grass whilst we're cutting down on fertiliser, and that's very important with the whole environmental point of view now and sustainability, which will be talked about in the next stand. I suppose, how do we grow this grass? We know what we've grown now, how do we grow it? And it goes back down to the basics of soil fertility, the P's and the K's. And if you look at the P firstly, almost 70%. Index 1 is very low, index 2 and 3, 2 is low, 3 is exactly where we want to be as a farm, and 4 is on the high side. So most farms ideally we want to be hitting index 3 or above. And you can see here that almost 70% of the farm is at index 3 and 4 for P. Compare that to a lot of dry stock farms, 60% of most dry stock farms are index 1, index 2. So getting our fertility right will grow a lot more grass. And similarly with the K, you can see that a lot of the farmers at index 3, index 4 for K as well, which is very important. So that nitrogen then, by having the P and K and lime right, the lime pH is at 6.5 or more, by having that right, they will get more bang for a buck. We'll put on our fertiliser, we'll get the real kick because the fertility is right. And it's an important message, going back to your own farms, take a few soil samples, get the P's and K's right, and it will grow a lot more grass for you if you need it. So we're growing the grass, and I suppose how to manage it, and going back to what Pierce said about animal performance, trying to drive animal performance, all about managing grass, and that is a hard thing to do. So basically we have to have the proper infrastructure in place. So there's 35 paddocks here at 0.75 hectares each. So the good infrastructure, you can see behind us the way the farm is divided up. So the residency, so cows can go in and graze for 1 or 2 days and move on to the next. So they're getting fresh grass every 1 or 2 days, but also allows the farm manager to, when he walks the farm, that if there's a heavy cover of grass, he can take that out as bales, as surplus bales, rather than trying to go in and graze in heavy covers. So again, our target is to graze our grass at 10 centimetres and get out of it at 4 centimetres. So we're grazing those heavy, the covers of grass like we see behind us, and we're grazing it down as bare as possible in 2 to 3 days. That it really is, and that takes a lot of management. So the farm manager will weekly walk the farm on a weekly basis. He's also using Pasture-Based Ireland, which is a tool, a computer tool basically, that helps him make those decisions. So it monitors what the farmer's growing, it monitors, tells us what the demand of the farm is, and if the farmer's going into surplus of too many days ahead, he can make the decision then to take out surplus grass or heavy covers, make them a surplus bales, which is high quality for the winglands, and keeps control of grass that way as well. So again, as Pierce said at the start, a long grazing season, so we're aiming for 240 days of grass. That means getting stock out in early February, right out at the end of November, into November. And again, the farm manager will be using like the spring rotation planner and the autumn planner, kind of a planned approach to letting stock out. They're not letting all the stock out in February, but the priority stock might be getting out in February. Those weanlings that are born the year before, getting them out early in February and grazing through a long grazing season by having quite quality grass in front of them at all times. The farm since 2015 has mostly been reseeded, and reseeding really helps in the shoulders of the year. So early spring, late autumn, that's really when reseeding has kicked in, and that's what helped grow this tons of grass, like we said earlier on. So and incorporation of clover, the farm started to incorporate clover. It's a big way of fixing nitrogen, and it'll be talked about possibly the next stand.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. As you would have heard on the first stand there, that the farm has quite a good level of output, but we're challenged all the times with our variable costs, so we're quite a high cost basis. And on the cattle performance or the finishing side, one of the things we're always trying to balance up is pushing for carcass weight, but also getting animals off the farm without getting into too high of a cost. So we do finishing budgets regularly here. We do them in summer to see whether we bring in, say, meal to try and push animals on. We bring them in before animals go into the shed to see what the, I suppose, the financials are of that. But if you're looking at the graph here, the left-hand side, just to, I suppose, explain what you're looking at here. So carcass weight is on the left-hand side, 260 kilos up to 380 kilos. Age is here, 16 months up to 22 months. Bullocks are in blue, heifers are in green. Age of bullocks is this red line here, and the age of heifers is this yellow line here. And essentially, this is given the performance for the last 4 years. And the performance in 2019, I could go back 2018, 2017, 2016. There wouldn't be too much of a variance. The only year where we've seen a significant variance was in 2018, where, as Gabriel said here, we were very tight on grass. We came in and we finished the bullocks practically ad lib. It was the highest carcass weight that we got. We shoved them up to nearly 380 kilos, but it didn't make sense financially. Yes, it did in, say, tying into the whole scheme and, say, saving silage. But then bullocks would have ate 1.2 tonne of meal, so it didn't, say, return that way. What our finishing blueprint is now, and I talk about heifers first. So if you look at here, say, in the green here, the heifer carcass weight has averaged around 300 kilos since the project started. That'd be below where our target was. Ideally, we would have said that from a suckler cow here, we'd like to be pushing that heifer into 315 to 330 kilo carcass. Just hasn't done that with the age that we're killing them. I'd have no doubt that if we kept that heifer and killed them at 23, 24 months of age, let them mature into a bigger, say, frame, holding more carcass weight, you would. But it's not making financial sense for the extra 15 to 20 or 30 kilos of carcass that you're getting. In recent years, in 19, 20, 21, we've always aimed to try and get as many cattle finished off grass. We've done different things about bringing in meal at different stages, to try and increase the carcass weight, but what we've seen is it's sort of held steady. So instead of, I suppose, pushing for more carcass weight, what we've said or what we've done last year is that we'll try and change the blueprint around, we'll try and prioritise heifers on the farm, and we'll try and get them killed earlier. We'll still aim for that 300 kilo carcass, but having it done at a younger age. So our average age up to 2021 would have been 20 months of age. Our average age in 2022 was at just 18 months of age. How do we do that? We prioritised keeping the heifers out at the end of the year, so they would have stayed out until December grazing. So we would have done our autumn rotation planner, we would have seen what grass we would have had, and we would have kept them out on 1 kilo to 2 kilos of meal depending on weather. We prioritised those for early turnout. That's for first batch that we killed there would have went out to grass at the start of February. This year's went out on the 29th of January. Yes, they came back in for a period again, but we were still getting them out and getting them, say, performing quickly. And then what we've done is we've killed about 80% of those off grass with no concentrates. We did feed a small bit of concentrates to the final number, with the net effect that last year heifers were killed at an average of 299 kilo carcass with about 358 kilos lifetime concentrates. And for me, that is where we need to be getting to if we're going to be at that carcass weight. Because if we're putting much more meal into that, well, then we're going to be competing head on with dairy beef. And having a suckler cow here, getting that carcass weight when you could have a dairy beef and not getting far off it. So to me, that's one of the big ones. We can talk, and there'll be talk later on about sustainability, but there's a huge sustainability message in that and talking about younger, earlier age of slaughter. Moving on to the bullocks. Bullocks carcass weight has been around sort of 350, 360 kilos. Yes, we're trying to, I suppose, push on and kill bullocks, but as you'll be told in the breeding stand later on, one of the big sort of changes from 17, 18, 19 has been trying to use better genetics, trying to use better terminal genetics, push carcass weight, increase. there's a negative correlation in that when we're trying to push animals to get a bigger carcass weight, we're not obviously going to finish them off grass then as easy. So we've only killed about, say, maybe between 10 and 20% of bullocks off grass in recent years, but we still have brought age of slaughter forward and bullocks as well slightly this year. What we're looking at is that bullocks go in, where they're pushed on, or say we've tried a number of different things. The year before last, we pulled out the heaviest 20 bullocks, fed them 8 kilos a meal at grass, see could we push on those. Yes, it did help, they went into higher carcass weights, but the figure on the return of investment wasn't quite there. The best return of investment that we've got in recent years is high quality silage and finishing bullocks with 6 kilos of concentrates indoors. The average age of slaughter last year would have been about the 10th of December. That would have improved. The years previous, it was about the 23rd, 24th of December. We would have ended up with quite a lot of animals being killed between Christmas and the New Year, just as the way things were. But we have improved, that's what we have. If we're looking at, say, the slaughter performance then, and this is the 2022 slaughter performance, bullocks, the average carcass grade was R equals, fat score was 3-, 53% kill out. Last year was a good year in finances, average 1786 at a beef price of 496 per kilo. All bar 3 bullocks got the full quality inspect bonus. There was 3 animals that failed because they were a fat score of 2-. Heifers, R equals 3 equals, 52% kill out, 1507 and 506 a kilo. That is average pretty much the same. You could go maybe 1 or 2% up on that, and the range in carcass grade goes from about O+ to U+ on the bullock side, and it goes from about O equals to U- on the heifer side. So that's, I suppose, where we're going on that. Our finishing blueprint, or where our blueprint has gone now, say taking an animal from the day it's born right through to the day it leaves the farm, we've it broken down into sort of 4 key areas. Birth to housing in year 1, and we don't really have a problem with this. Newford cow is very, very milky. That first cross Angus or Hereford, the calves are gaining about 1.3–1.35 kilos a day, 200-day weight at 315 kilos, about 50 to 60 kilos above the national average. So that's one of the areas that we're excelling in. Extended grazing then we're trying to keep out, and we're also weaning early. So we're weaning our cows depending on the year in September, prioritising the best quality grass then, and cows coming in to graze after. First winter is critical, daily live weight gain of 0.6 to 0.7. We've achieved that for the last 3 years. Over the last 5 years we had one blip with the virus. 4 years ago, daily live weight gain was about 0.28 to 0.35, had a big impact on our second season of grass. That's achievable through 75 D silage and 1.5 to 2 kilos of concentrates. Concentrates are front loaded, they're fed from when the animals go in on the bullock side to about the 1st of February, fed to the 1st of January on heifers because we're getting heifers out earlier. Second season of grass, we're targeting 0.9 to 1 kilo of daily live weight gain. Some people say that might be a bit low. We'll do better than that at the moment, but throughout the overall season, that's what we're doing. Priority turnout for heifers and rotational grazing, as Gabriel said. I've talked about the finishing phase. Heifers off grass 16 to 18 months. We've averaged over the last 5 years less than 500 kilos of lifetime concentrates. As I said last year, 358, which we were very pleased with. If we repeat that this year, we'll be happy. Bullocks off grass, ad-lib silage and 6 kilos of concentrates, and they're working out about less than 600 kilos of concentrates last year.